we get?
Okay. We got a variety of items.
Okay.
We got ourselves some oh Lord.
Dear goodness.
We got ourselves some Bing Bing. And I got an aloe drink because I love aloe drink.
I've never had aloe.
It's got chunks of aloe in it.
Aloe's the stuff that you rub on your skin when you get sunburned.
Yeah, it's super hydrating. We got melon milk, which we've had before and really like that.
So
Brett's gonna try rice beverage.
I don't know what this is.
We're not sure what that is.
What it's supposed to taste like.
Right?
Is it supposed to taste like liquid rice?
I guess. I got another orange sack. And lastly, we got Cal Pico soda, which is delightfully satisfying in original flavor, but it has no description of what that means. It doesn't
tell you what the original flavor is.
We don't know what that flavor is.
That's gonna be awesome.
I'm wondering if it's a cola maybe, or like we don't know. We don't know what that is.
I don't know.
So,
all right, let's head back to the office. While we try this stuff out, we're gonna talk a little bit more about some adoption content, because that's the only reason why you're here, unless you want to watch us grocery shop. That's on our other channel. Lana, thank you so much for sending in the question for today. The question revolves around the topic of when did you start realizing different things about your adoption? At what age did you start realizing things were different? Oh gosh, am I supposed to shake this? Too late.
Which one's that? That's the rice.
This is.
That's the rice beverage.
Look at it. It's like it's clear.
Does it have rice in it?
I don't know. Oh my goodness. Nope.
You should just chug that down.
Can't do it.
Drink it.
At the end of the episode, maybe I will.
Yeah.
All right. So, at what age did you start realizing that things were different, or that you were adopted, or, you know, did you even notice until now and I pointed it out?
What? I'm adopted?
Here's the question. Here's the actual question that I've written down.
Okay.
What didn't you understand about adoption growing up, and what ages do you remember understanding those different things?
I mean, I've always known that I was adopted. Like,
Right.
that's never not been a thing that I've ever wondered about.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's pretty obvious. And then the physical differences between me and like my peers or my family members are pretty obvious. So that's always been something that I've known. I very specifically remember in elementary school, you know, kids, right? We've talked about this before. Kids bring up the differences and kind of whatever they can possibly do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, it was always brought up that, like, in profile, I look different, you know, or my skin color is different or my hair is a little different than most of all of the white kids that I grew up with. But I have always known that I was adopted, but I don't think the idea of what that really meant, for instance, like having people start talking about, like, you know, your mom didn't like birth you, or whatever.
That was gonna be my follow-up question. Like, when did you realize that your parents were not your biological parents?
Sure. And I'm imagining it's probably the same time that other people started figuring out that their parents were, right? Like, we don't really think about where we came from outside
not
of, like,
really.
You know, babies grow in here in this region, you know.
In what region?
In this
region. Oh, this one?
Region.
Right here.
Specifically.
Oh. I did not enjoy that at all. No, get off of me. Stop that. Do you remember a specific time, though, when you came to the realization that your parents were not your birth parents or anything?
I don't. I can remember...
Me neither, honestly.
I remember specific times when I would realize that, like, you know, my skin color is different. Or, like, there's a universal story with adoptees that, like, oh, look, the palms of my hands are the same color as the palms of my parents' hands. Like, that. I remember having that revelation and being like, oh, in that revelation, the rest of me is very different than, you know, how my family looks or whatever. But, I mean, outside of that, I don't remember, like, there wasn't a jarring moment where any of that stuff really was like, you know, this age equals now I understand adoption. Right. You know?
Yeah, there was never that time for me either.
Yeah.
You know, it was just one of those things that it was just natural, I guess. It just came along naturally. You know, my parents always told me that I was adopted. I mean, I didn't really fully understand what adoption meant until probably, you know, like when I was like 8 years old, something like that. When I
Yeah.
fully, figured out, so there's a chance that my biological parents are out there. I don't know why I do this for biological parents. Birth parents? My birth mother,
Yeah,
because
that
forget
makes
the
more
birth
sense.
dad.
Look, all kids are biological.
Yeah,
right?
it's true. Maybe.
Synthetic.
Synthetic
My
children.
synthetic parents.
When I came to that realization, it wasn't anything, again, it wasn't jarring, right? I was like, oh, okay, I may have parents out there.
Yeah.
What's for dinner?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've talked about that before. Like in about the middle school years, there was a jarring moment where it becomes more of an identity issue, I
Right.
suppose. But I think that's when, those middle school years are rough, and it's when we start to kind of find ourselves anyway.
Yeah. No, for sure.
And grow into that identity. And so that's when a lot of those like worth issues really came into play. One of the things they don't tell you about adoption that becomes very apparent as we get older and are adults is what inheritance really means.
Right.
For
Sure. Legacy and inheritance and...
Yeah, we're adopted into way more than just a family line. We're adopted into everything that entails.
Yeah.
And so, like, I'm an overholster through and through. I have, natural biological tendencies or whatever that are mine, but, like, there's stuff that we as a family say about ourselves which is true, and that's going to carry on down the line. That like we don't get bored. My family members, overholsters, don't get bored, and that's something that's been told to me for my entire life, that if your imagination works and your brain works, you're not allowed to be bored. And that's something that I tell my kids, and that's not a coup thing, right? That's an overholster thing. I don't know if that's a coup thing, but like that's the legacy that I have as an adoptee, is those things from my parents, the desire to read and learn and all that kind of stuff. Like that's from my upbringing.
Yeah.
And nobody tells you that about adoption. It's all about like basically keeping you alive.
It really is.
Like, all the
it really
literature,
is.
There's nothing in there about what that means for thriving as a human.
Yeah.
It's all just like, okay, well,
How to not be incarcerated.
right? How to not ruin everything.
Yeah.
And even then, people don't seem to be getting that, do
No,
they?
my goodness. People need to figure that out. Read those books.
Yeah.
And then move on afterwards. But I mean, I completely agree with you. The whole legacy thing, that's not something that we... it's not something even like biological kids fully understand, right?
Sure.
Until, you start getting more into your adult years. I started fully understanding that whenever I had my kid.
Sure.
What legacy truly meant, and the legacy that my parents were leaving behind for me. Not just, physically, but the morals, the way that I'm supposed to carry myself, the values that I carry around with me, the things that I want to pass on to my kid. That is so important. Mm-hmm. That is huge. But it's not something that is talked about often in the adoption realm.
Sure.
It's talked about a ton with biological parents and kids, but as far as the adopted ones, we still get an inheritance of something, whether it's good or bad. We still receive a legacy of some kind from our parents. It's not something that people often think about, however.
Yeah. I'll disclaim this with this is not something I share very often, and it's not something that I'm probably going to talk a ton about on the channel, but I think it's important, so I will bring it up. We're about to go this weekend to my grandma's 95th birthday, which is incredible. She's an amazing woman and just an astounding person that's seen some things and is living just this amazing life and is truly an inspirational human in my life. But one of the things about that is I feel compelled to tell people at this point that when I say we're going to go see my grandma for her 95th birthday, I mean on my adopted side. I don't know any of my relations from my birth side, so every time you talk about that, we're talking about my family members that I was adopted into this family. Mm-hmm. A lot of this was sparked for me in the last few years. I lost both of my parents in the last 4 years, so my mom and dad both passed. over the last 4 years or so from some things that don't need to be discussed right here. None of them, terrible or drug related or anything, but in that, in losing, this is my mom's mom, and losing my mom, this revelation has come about that I don't have any sort of real direct biological link to that side of my family. Because I don't have my mom or I never had siblings or anything like that. So we're going to this event without having a bloodline linked to it. But the understanding needs to be this, that we were adopted, and that means fully family.
Yeah.
And that's not just, my mom and dad and potential siblings or whatever, but that's family. And that's my cousins and my uncles and my grandparents and the whole line. And, I'm taking my kids and my family, and we're going to go to my grandma's 95th birthday and see my cousins. And in this case, none of them look like me. And we all grew up, the way that we grew up, and that, I don't have anybody there that I grew up with necessarily. I'm very close to my cousins and my uncles and aunts and stuff, but being adopted, it's a perspective that you don't have as a kid that I have now. And that perspective is that family is family. And that's what you get into when you adopt. And that's what you get into when you're adopted is family and legacy and inheritance. And I absolutely did not understand that until my 30s. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that I should probably have been expected to, so that's probably fine.
Yeah.
But, I may talk about this more down the line, but there's a lot of stuff they don't tell you. And you have to pick that up on your own. But as an adult, as somebody who was raised to be an independent, fully functioning, well-adjusted human being, it's up to us, it's up to me to decide what I'm going to do with those new bits of information and those revelations as they come. And they're hard to face, but I'm a better person because of it. So I don't know that really answers so much of the question, but I do feel like it's something that maybe people need to hear.
Right. Yeah. That's good. So, tell us your thoughts. That's it.
So what do you think?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what everybody else's situation is either, right? Like,
right.
We all have our own things. But
everybody's different.
What's your deal?
Yeah. Tell us your guys' thoughts.
How are you taking responsibility for what's going on in your world, Yeah.
Yeah. So, post it in the comments below. Send us a message. Again, email us here. It's covering up his face again, but it's fine. As always, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. We love you guys. We love this channel. We love being able to talk about this stuff. So thank you for your continued support. We're going to go and finish off these weird drinks. And as I said before, I'm going to try to chug this Shikai rice punch. I'm allowed to say it like that because I'm Korean. Yeah. All right, here we go.
That's Korean beverage. It says so on the thing. It says so right here.
It does?
Korean traditional beverage.
Yeah, it does say that. You can't read that. Wait, focus.
Do it.
Focus.
In there.
Focus. It's sort of there. Okay.
This episode brought to you by Calipico Soda and Korean traditional beverage.
Bottoms up.
Oh, that's so cringy. Ugh. Ugh. Ugh.
There's chunk.
There's rice chunks in your beverage. I hope that's rice.
No. No.